I've been a retirement consultant since 2009, and each year I become more and more shocked by how bad of a deal retirement plans are for participants in small businesses. And there's three main reasons why this is such a bad deal, which I'm going to go over. But I also want to let each of you know what you can do about it and how you can actually take control and ask intelligent and thoughtful questions to your employer so you don't get taken advantage of by both the service providers and your employer's relationships and apathy. The first main reason has to do with the fact that the industry is completely lacking in transparency. You should be able to shop for a 401k plan as an employer the way you would shop for a car. I know this because I recently bought a car. I know exactly what to do. Even though I'm not an expert, I know to look at the Carfax report. I'm able to go on Carfax or Auto Trader or so many different websites, and I can see how many miles the car has. I can see the accident history. I can see, of course, how much it costs, and then I can make comparisons based on the type of car that I want to get. And if one car has similar mileage but and a similar accident history but a lower cost than another car, then I know that this car is just going to be a better deal, assuming everything else is equal. But with a 401k plan, you're not able to make those comparisons so easily. And the main reason has to do with the fact that the industry is naturally confusing. A lot of that has to do with government regulations. A lot of it has to do with the inherently complex nature of 401k plans and how they actually work. In fact, 401k doesn't even refer to a group-sponsored retirement plan. The term 401k actually simply means the contributions that the employee makes. The matching and or profit sharing contribution refers to the contribution that the employer makes. So in reality, these retirement plans are simply referred to defined contribution group-sponsored retirement plans. Defined benefit plans are a separate issue that I won't address, but this has to do with the main type of plan, the defined contribution retirement plan. One of the main reasons for such a lack of transparency has to do with the fact that nobody gets a bill. I know this is really, really crazy. Can you imagine buying a service and having no idea what you paid for it, and then having to hire another consultant just to figure out what the initial consultants are actually charging you? This doesn't make any sense, I know, but this is exactly how it works. The problem is that when you don't actually get a bill, you have a lot less sensitivity to the cost. Not to mention that the vast majority of small business retirement plans pass on some, or in most cases, almost all of the cost to the plan participants, making the employer even less sensitive to the cost. But you should be getting a bill. Financial advisors are supposed to, if they're acting in a fiduciary capacity, send a bill on a quarterly basis. However, in many cases, the financial advisor is not actually charging a direct fee. They're earning compensation through an asset-based kickback known as a brokerage commission that's actually built into the cost of the funds. So when you look at a fund's expense ratio, you might see 1%, but that 1% isn't just the fund's management fee. Oftentimes that not only includes the advisor's fee, but record keeping, administration, and custodial fees as well. So you can imagine how complicated this is for employers to actually figure out. And this is what makes it so confusing to shop for a plan, not just in terms of price, but compare the cost based on the service and the technology. If one plan is cheaper, but it doesn't have quite the same service and technology, maybe it is better to purchase a more expensive plan. But again, you have to know how all these layers work, and you have to know all the fees to be able to make an apples to apples comparison. And when you don't get a bill, you don't even think about these costs or whether or not it's actually harming the participants. You also don't clearly see these fees even on the participant statements. Yes, there's fee disclosure, and yes, in some cases you can see fees on your statement as a participant, but sometimes these fees are only disclosed as a percentage. And sometimes even when they are disclosed clearly in actual dollars, you as a participant have no means of discerning whether or not these fees are actually reasonable. You see a $200 charge. What does record keeping mean? I don't even understand. And is $200 reasonable, or should I be paying $100? Am I even using these services enough to justify this $200 or so fee? These are all questions that I walk you through on my website, paulsipple.com, that I will put in a description of this video. But what really is happening is the fact that nobody really sees or understands the charges or knows what's reasonable in reference to what level of services that you're receiving. Now, the next reason that these plans are such a bad deal is really because the employer is apathetic. The employer has very little incentive to care when the fees are not affecting the bottom line. And even if they do manage to get a fee reduction, a lot of times you as participants don't necessarily even know that you're paying anything or have a good handle on the fees. So the employer doesn't even see this as a benefit because they worry that the participants aren't even going to appreciate what they've actually done. And since nobody's complaining because you don't know what you don't know, you can't complain about something that you can't see, and because the employer's never actually seen a bill, they don't really feel particularly motivated to reduce costs that they don't even themselves know exist. And again, they have no means of knowing what fees are even reasonable. So the incentives are completely misaligned. It's a complete moral hazard where there's really no reason for anyone to care. But when you actually see the charges come out of your accounts and you understand the effect of an extra $200 a month, which it can be an extra $50 a month even, you feel the effect on your phone bill, your internet bill, your electric bill, anything else you pay, you understand that an extra $20 a month even is going to have an effect on your retirement. If you think about monthly charges, and you think about your retirement plan in terms of monthly charges, then you're going to start feeling and understanding the pain, and then maybe you'll be able to confront your employer. Now, the worst reason, unfortunately, that these plans are so expensive is because oftentimes your employer, the owner of the business, the CFO, may have a personal relationship with the financial advisor. And for that reason, they're not going to have an incentive. They didn't have an incentive anyway to scrutinize these costs. But when you look at a relationship where the business owner is actually giving money to their friend. Let's say the friend does one meeting a year. Typically, there's very little interaction that these financial advisors have with plan participants. Maybe one meeting a year. And even if they do have a lot of interaction, there's not a whole lot of reason to change your investments. And many times the investment lineup itself, which consists of pretty much the same funds throughout most of these plans. A lot of them are a bunch of basic index funds like a total market fund, total market equity, total market bond fund, treasury bonds, S&P 500. It takes very little skill or expertise to select and monitor these funds, but these advisors are getting paid as if they're doing a complicated original piece of work that nobody understands, when in reality they do very little. That's not to say advisors should be free, but they view themselves as managers, fake managers, that get some kind of a management fee to oversee an entire account. Now, when the account balance goes up, nobody, including the advisor, record keeper, custodian, or administrator, is doing any additional work. And yet they're getting paid additional dollars simply because more contributions are being put into this plan. The employer has very little reason to look closely at what the golfing buddy or the family member or the person, whoever they have a relationship, is actually doing, and to actually ask questions about whether or not the employees are spending any time talking to the financial advisor. Is the advisor conducting any one-on-one meetings with the employees? Are they doing any phone calls? If so, what did they talk about? How many hours and minutes did they spend servicing the plan participants each year? Are they actually providing actionable retirement plan advice that will help people during retirement? And if they are, again, how much actual time are they spending and how much is that time worth? I have never come across an employer in all of my years of being a forensic 401k consultant that's dug as deep as I have and asked these particular questions. So please take the time to go through my website, paulsipple.com. Come up with a list of questions to ask your employer, such as, what am I paying for record keeping, administration, custodial, and advisory fees on an annual basis? Have you looked at other record keepers, advisors, custodians, and administrators in the marketplace and compared the plan that we have now to other providers in terms of their cost, their services, and their technology? And are we really getting a good deal? Have you ever considered paying these fees at the employer level? Because if you were, would you otherwise have written a check for the amounts that are coming out of our accounts? Naturally, employers are going to be much more sensitive to cost that they're actually bearing directly, or at least that they're getting an invoice for it to reflect the amount of money that's coming out of the participants' accounts. You can put these questions in a very non-confrontational way as though you're really trying to help. And you can tiptoe around the question, are there any relationships that you have in place that might be compromising the objectivity and the integrity of your search when you select and monitor these plan providers? And when you think about who else is available, is the fact that there's a relationship in place stopping you from making accurate comparisons? And what you can also mention is if the business owner has the largest balance, or the majority of the money especially, it would make a lot more sense for the business to actually pay these fees. Not only because it would save the rest of the participants a ton of money, but the business can get a tax deduction because this is a business expense like anything else. So if you're a business owner and you're paying the largest share out of your pocket anyway because you have the biggest balance, well, you might as well write a check. Not to mention that you can help mitigate your risk of fiduciary liability, because there's no fiduciary liability for excessive fees that the employer is paying. It's only the fees that are passed on to the participants that are subjected to legal scrutiny. So I really hope this video has been helpful to all of you. I hope you peruse through my website. You're welcome to email me at psipple@paulsipple.com with any questions you have, and I'm happy to help you in any way that I can.